OK, Liz, thank you very much. Liz Bates there with the latest from Westminster. More on that story a little later on in the programme. Now, the government today set out Northern Ireland's budget for 2023 to 2024. It's agreed to be flexible on the repayment of last year's near £300 million overspend to prevent severe cuts in frontline public services. Well, joining me now to tell us more about it, Sky correspondent Stephen Murphy, who's at Hillsborough Castle in Belfast. So put all of this into context for us, Stephen.
Yeah, it's budget day here in Northern Ireland, but you don't get to see a finance minister holding up a red box or anything like that because, of course, there is no devolved government in Northern Ireland and there hasn't been for the last year or more. So instead today, as you mentioned there, the Secretary of State, Chris Heaton-Harris, instead laid before Parliament a written statement which set out the budget for Northern Ireland. It was a tough budget and it had been expected here on the ground in Northern Ireland to be a tough budget. Essentially, 7 out of the 9 government departments here in Northern Ireland have experienced budget cuts in their allocations. The Department of Health, for example, got an increase, but it was only 0.5%. When you set this against an inflationary background of around 10% or more, these are some pretty serious real-term cuts for the various dormant departments and the civil servants running them in the absence of ministers and the absence of an executive here in Northern Ireland. It's now going to fall to the civil servants running government here in Northern Ireland to take some extremely tough decisions about how they make their budgets and their services fit these new decreased allocations. And that's something that the trade unions representing civil servants here in Northern Ireland is furious about. They say it's deeply unfair on civil servants to make what are essentially political decisions. These are decisions that should be made by elected public representatives. And of course, Northern Ireland simply doesn't have that option at the moment. So at the moment, the political parties are in Hillsborough Castle here behind us, meeting with the Secretary of State, Chris Heaton-Harris, for a roundtable discussion on the budget and its implications. We know already they are not happy. They are not happy with how this budget will play out as well with the public just 3 weeks ahead of the local elections here on the ground in Northern Ireland. There was a £300 million overspend in Northern Ireland last year. The UK government, the London government, has said it will now give politicians here in Northern Ireland a two-year period in which to repay that money. So Chris Heaton-Harris is putting a positive spin on that, saying that that will go some way to protecting essential services. But there's no disguising that it is a tough budget for the people of Northern Ireland, still without a government instalment.
Stephen, thank you. Stephen Murphy there with the latest on Budget Day in Northern Ireland, rather an unusual one. Right, we're going to take a